everybody knows, Falcon and Winter Soldier is coming out on Friday. It'll be a Thursday midnight drop right there. It's kind of like a WandaVision there. You can enjoy it, watch it. It's about 48 minutes. I've seen the first episode, full disclosure, but I will not reveal anything. No spoilers, nothing at all. I was very fortunate to see the first episode, but we are going to break down and talk about how we got to this series, or maybe some of you who maybe haven't seen all the movies or haven't kept in touch with everything. We're also going to touch on the comic book connections, touch on things that we see that might be coming, and speculate who we might see and what their roles are based on the trailers that we've seen already. Mikey,
Mephisto!
Yes, Mephisto will be in this one, damn it. Somewhere, somehow, he is going to show up.
It's going to keep yelling it. It's just going to keep yelling it until he shows up.
Anyway, what Mikey, do you want to start us off, man? How did we start this whole journey off, my friend?
Yeah, listen, this is a journey a long time in the making, and it started with Captain America, the First Avenger. As we look at the two leads of Falcon and Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes showed up really early. He was Steve Rogers' best buddy. Mm-hmm. He was looking out for Steve Rogers when Steve Rogers was just a scrawny little kid. Kind of the big brother, the family that Steve Rogers didn't have. And their bond stayed true. And once Steve Rogers became Captain America and went to fight over in Europe, he rescued Bucky Barnes. Bringing it back around, they and the rest of the Howling Commandos were badass soldiers kicking Germany's ass. And ultimately, and sadly and tragically, Bucky Barnes died. Fell off a moving train to his peril. A moment that I feel is kind of cheesy. Okay. Of all the things that I love, and this is actually one of the, just to say this is what I love about Marvel is. Yeah. We all know, anyone who read the comics knew, that this is kind of the Bucky Barnes story. But the way it was shot, the way it was done, I love Captain America: The First Avenger. But there are some parts definitely in the second half of it that feel a little rushed, a little cheesy. And the death of Bucky is definitely one of those moments. Okay. But it's amazing to me that despite the fact that moment doesn't 100% work for me in the original Captain America movie, they made the most out of that. They really did it. And so Captain America First Avenger, that's pretty much the gist of what you need to know, aside from the fact that Cap gets frozen in ice and wakes up a whole bunch of years later in the modern day as the original super soldier. But then really the Falcon and Winter Soldier story really just tracks through, for the most part, the Captain America movies. The next time that we really pick things up is in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Literally right off the bat, meet Sam Wilson as he is trying to just get his workout on and is getting shamed to no end by Steve Rogers' amazing cardio skills, which is where we get the famous "on your left" line. So Sam is also a soldier, dealing with a lot of the same things that Steve is dealing with. What is a soldier's life when there's not a war to fight? And so Sam is working with a lot of veterans. Sam and Steve become friends. And when a new assassin shows up and starts killing people with some crazy cool powers, this guy, the Winter Soldier, turns out to be Bucky, because comic books are a big soap opera with punching. So we see Bucky Barnes back from the dead, just like Steve Rogers, find out that Hydra kind of took him off the ground after he fell out of that train, did similar experiments with him, and he has been the ultimate assassin for them throughout the years. And as we discover that Hydra has sort of taken over S.H.I.E.L.D., Cap is sort of in the middle of everything. He becomes public enemy number one. He and Natasha, the Black Widow, only have Sam to trust, and we get to see Sam's awesome abilities in his Falcon gear. And Sam, Falcon, and Natasha kind of take on S.H.I.E.L.D. Hydra. And ultimately things end with Steve duking it out with Bucky Barnes and refusing to kill him. He says to Bucky, if you're going to do it, do it. I'm not going to fight you. And we see the hint of humanity in Bucky Barnes, which drives us right to Civil War. Actually, I will say, if you really want to be a completionist, you take a quick detour over to Ant-Man, the original Ant-Man, where you do get to see Paul Rudd kick the shit out of Falcon in a very embarrassing In a very embarrassing moment for Falcon.
I don't know if I would say kick the shit out.
I wouldn't say kick the shit.
Won the fight, but
if you want to take a further detour to Age of Ultron, we see that Sam has been on the lookout for Bucky. Like, he has been doing this search while Steve is off avenging, and Sam's kind of like, your world is avenging. Like, I can't wrap my head around this. And at the end of Age of Ultron, we see that Steve and Natasha have formed the new Avengers, and one of them being Sam Wilson.
Very good point. Very good point.
Let's stop here before we dive into Civil War. Let's go back through all of this. Yeah, exactly. This is what's so fascinating about it. So brilliant. They were best friends, and remember, this relationship is important between Bucky Barnes and Steve Rogers. Steve was the skinny kid who couldn't, wasn't physically that strong, but he had the heart of a lion. That whole I could go all day, and he was essentially the submissive in a dominant submissive relationship. But when he gets the super serum, the super soldier serum, he all of a sudden becomes the dominant and Bucky becomes a submissive, which really messes with Bucky. We see that in relationship. I'm not talking gay terms, so get your mind out of the gutter. So
I didn't know it was that kind of movie.
I'm just saying. Well,
I would say maybe the primary versus the dominant. Maybe the primary.
You guys are instilling that meaning to what I'm saying. Relationships are dominant or submissive.
Primary and secondary.
Look, all right, fine. Whatever you want to say. Primary, secondary. It's America's ass. That's what we're saying. But either way, it's primary and secondary situation. And Bucky has a hard time with it. He has a hard time with it. Has to go through his own journey of seeing Steve become this leader, become this thing that Bucky once was. And in essence, when Bucky dies, he's almost like ceding the lead role to Steve in a way, and goes down. And we find out later he becomes a super soldier, and he's tortured as we go to Civil War by all the things he's done. But the things that finally break it, the thing that finally breaks it is Steve constantly believing in him, constantly trying to make him remember, constantly trying to make him come out of this haze that he has been programmed to be in, to commit these atrocities for decades. And on the other side with Sam Wilson, you're right. He is like, counseling veterans, helping people in these situations, but going through his own thing as well, going through his own journey as he struggles with who he is and where he wants to go next. He's a veteran of the U.S. Air Force, has those metal wings. He's got Red Wing, that little drone buddy of his as well. So there's a lot of that as we go into Civil War. I'm sorry, Mike.
And also, jump in real quick. Yeah. I mean, some of the changes that the MCU does make are really smart changes for a modern audience for the big screen. Bucky back in the comics, he was Cap's sidekick. I mean, he was essentially his Robin. Right. And the idea that you're having a little kid run around the fields of World War II, that just didn't work. So it was a really, really smart change that they made. And I agree. Like in that scene, Bucky's death scene in First Avenger, it is a little rushed. If you go back onto Disney Plus, there's an animated series called Avengers Assemble, and they have a terrific Captain America episode that is sort of like looks back, sort of like newsreel type footage, and you see that it's not a train. It's the Red Skull has some sort of rocket ship that Cap latches onto. He tells Bucky, "Stay here." As they're zipping up into the air, he looks back, and Bucky has held on. And oh my God, like this moment still gets me misty eyed. Yeah. Bucky slips, Cap catches him, and it's sort of like, do I stop the bad guy or do I save my friend? And Bucky is the one who makes the sacrifice. He says, "The world needs you more than me." Yeah. And he lets go. Oh my God. And the changes that they made to Sam as well. I mean, in the comics, when Sam was first introduced, this is a guy who kept a bird coop. I mean, and he could communicate telepathically. And Red Wing was an actual Falcon that he used, and he flew around on mechanical wings. The idea that they made him former like a pararescue guy. So smart. They were able to use Red Wing, like make this drone, and based off of some of the promos we've seen from Falcon and Winter Soldier, it sounds like Red Wing is going to be making an appearance in the show as well. You might not love all of the decisions that you have to make when you're taking a comic and putting it on the big screen. But Marvel has such a great track record, and Bucky and Sam are great examples of that.
Yeah, 100%. Another real quick thing to mention with Winter Soldier is it is also the first introduction of Sharon Carter.
Yes.
Peggy Carter's niece, who is also a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and who has been assigned to kind of keep an eye on Cap. So we meet her there. She also plays a big role in the end as one of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents that stands up to Hydra. And as we do get into Civil War, we do see a couple things. One, we see the introduction of Zemo. Baron Zemo from the comics becomes Zemo, former Sokovian colonel, who lost his family when Ultron and the Avengers fought over the floating city of Sokovia, and is really upset about it, and kind of uses the Winter Soldier to break the Avengers apart. We get Sharon Carter revealing that she is Peggy Carter's niece to Cap. We get a little bit of a romance between them. And with the Sokovia Accords happening and Cap and Tony sort of at butting heads about it, and then this reveal that the Winter Soldier is seemingly behind this bombing of the Sokovia Accords, it sends Cap down a road with Sam Wilson right by his side, where he goes to prove Bucky's innocence, and in doing so, more or less rips the Avengers apart. So again, it really does take, like I said, it takes this moment with Cap and Bucky from the first Avengers movie and has built to this point where Cap's faith in his friend, despite the entire world telling him not to believe in it, drives him to sort of make the decisions that he makes that, like I said, does kind of ultimately bring the Avengers apart. But important things for where we're going into Falcon and Winter Soldier is you see Sam right there by Steve's side the whole time. You see that the relationship between Steve and Bucky is one of the most important, enduring relationships in the Marvel Universe. Whoever's dominant, whoever's submissive, it's a great relationship. Sharon Carter kind of going against S.H.I.E.L.D. orders to help them. And this is where we first start to get the really funny comic interplay between Sam and Bucky as the two of them kind of meet for the first time and really don't get along at all. Some really, really fun dynamics between them. And then ultimately, at the end of Civil War, we end up with Steve Rogers breaking Sam and a few others out of the giant prison that they are in for breaking the Sokovia Accords and heading off to be fugitives from the law. And we get Bucky being frozen in Wakanda until they can figure out what the fuck to do with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The dynamic that they introduce in Civil War between Sam and Bucky, and Civil War is, I don't know if it's quite 2.5 hours, but it's a long movie, and there's a lot of movie that they stuff in there. But the dynamic that we start to get a sense of between Sam and Bucky is so funny. Like Bucky in his Winter Soldier mind, he kicks Sam's ass. Like he lays him out. And then when they're able to kind of bring him back and they've got his metal arm in that vice, he throws out a tidbit of their history. Steve's like, well, you can't read that in a history book. And Sam's like, whoa. Just like that, we're supposed to trust him. And then you start to see the comedy, the comedy chemistry that these two have. The moment in the tiny little German car when Bucky asks Sam if he can move his seat up. And he says no. And then you get the two of them paired up in the airport fight going up against Spider-Man. And it's just such great, it's such great chemistry between these two performers. And fingers crossed, that's what we will get more of in the show.
Yeah, and you can't, like you mentioned, Peggy Carter's niece or great grandniece, Sharon. You can't remove Peggy Carter from the equation as well. She looms over this big with her and Cap and that relationship. We're seeing this. I imagine the series is going to take place, obviously, after the blip. So this is what they were saying. So what's that situation? Because remember, both of them, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but both of them were blipped out there in Infinity War. But you look at Peggy Carter, this whole relationship, Cap surrendering the ship, all that is connected to Peggy. What is Sharon's role in all of this? I wonder, and what's she going to do? Is she going to be on which side is she going to be on? And the truth is, both of these guys are fantastic. Because you're right, They have great chemistry together, and they're both dominants, and I love that. Neither one of them wants to be the submissive in that relationship, and I think that's going to lead to some fun interplay between these two guys.
I'm so uncomfortable. So uncomfortable.
But also, I love the idea that these are both guys that are scarred from their military service. I think this is important for me personally as I've watched this journey of these two gentlemen, is both of them are scarred from serving the country because of stuff that happened either while they were serving or stuff that happened as a result of their service. And I think that's an important new element that's going to feel so far away from WandaVision in one respect, and in another respect feels very connected to WandaVision and some other stuff we may be seeing coming down the road for sure. So I love all of that up to this point of our review of these two gentlemen. Mikey, please keep going.
Yeah. Well, one really important note, Zemo is arrested at the end of Civil War, but kind of feels like he succeeded, and he's not wrong. I mean, he did kind of tear the Avengers apart, and we kind of leave him in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s care, and that is all we know of Zemo up to this point.
Yeah.
Then, of course, we get to Infinity War. A whole lot happens. There's Thanos. There's Infinity Stones. You've seen the movie. We don't have to go through all of it. But again, the most important parts here are that we catch up with Steve, Natasha, Wanda, and Falcon, who have all been on the run. Public enemy number one as far as the government is concerned. They've all been breaking the law. They broke the Sokovia Accords. Yeah. They're fugitives. They've been doing their own thing. They catch up with everybody, get back to Avengers Mansion, head to Wakanda because they need someone to take Vision's Mind Stone out. And they catch up with Bucky, who has been there, and Wakanda has kind of it's been a good healing time. It was that was his time away at the special resort to take a moment to heal himself. He's in some nice robes. His hair is very conditioned. It looks very clean and lustrous, and he's happy and he's good. A lot of fighting happens. Things go down. Thanos wins, and both Falcon and Bucky blip. So we get to Endgame. They've been gone for 5 years. They're not in the majority of the movie, but Falcon arguably gets one of the most iconic lines again in all of Marvel history when Steve Rogers, Captain America, is up against Thanos' army and he hears Falcon say, Mr. McClung?
On your left.
There it is. So that he comes out swinging, Bucky comes out swinging, there is a big battle, Thanos loses, Tony Stark dies, lots of stuff goes down, and then probably the thing that leads directly into Falcon and Winter Soldier, and the most important part of this whole journey, is the very end of Endgame, where we see Joe Biden / old Steve Rogers. As far as I'm concerned, they are one and the same. It is the same guy. But we see him. We see old Steve Rogers show up. He's got the shield. Bucky, before Steve leaves, he says his goodbyes to Bucky. Old Steve Rogers shows up. Falcon goes over, and Falcon gets the shield. And Steve tells him that he's the guy. He is Captain America. So we leave Endgame knowing that Falcon is, as far as Steve Rogers is concerned, the new Captain America. And that kind of leads us through the movies up to where we will catch up with them in Falcon and Winter Soldier. But for those of you that are not comic book people, if you do look towards the comic books and look towards some of the things that are in there in some of the arcs, particularly Sam Wilson's Captain America arc, you can get some good guesses as to what is going to be going down in this show. But before that, gentlemen, any thoughts? Any things you want to say?
Oh, sorry, John.
No. Go ahead, Shane. Go ahead.
I'll say two quick things. As much as I loved Infinity War, that's when I would have been okay with it being a half hour longer because I wanted to see more from that Bucky Steve reunion. I wanted to see the Bucky Sam reunion because again, these guys, they don't really know each other that well. Their relationship thus far has been a little chaotic. So that was something that I wanted to see, but certainly understand why you can't see it. Question for you guys, and maybe I should say this to the end, but I'll just throw this out real quick. As the Russo brothers directing Civil War, and Steve and Sharon have had this sort of awkward flirtation, they do have that kiss. Do they know that Steve is going to end up with Peggy two movies later?
Ooh.
I think no.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, not as egregious as Luke and Leia making out in Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, I mean, that's
but I do think they didn't quite know. But I do think.
Yeah.
Well, go. What were you gonna say, Johnny?
I was gonna say, and there's nothing wrong with a man exploring something for a moment. They never go back to it, and his real love is always Peggy. And you could argue that he kissed Sharon because she's related to Peggy. That same kind of energy.
Kind of to John's point, actually, I don't think they knew exactly what they were going to do. I don't think they knew. Maybe they did. I mean, like sometimes you talk to these guys and they're like, we didn't know what the fuck was going to happen in Infinity War, but we knew this was the last shot. So maybe they did. But I think that whether they did or they didn't, you can tell with Steve and Sharon Carter that they hedged their bets.
Yeah,
they had a little bit of a connection. They had a little bit of a flirtation. They had the moment where they kissed. But it never went much beyond that. And to John's point, it kind of left it open for, had they wanted to go down that road further on for any reason, they probably could have. And if they wanted to do what they did, which is, look, you're great, but really Peggy's my girl, it doesn't feel, like when I go back and watch Civil War, that kiss between them doesn't feel like icky to me or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's going to be addressed in the show, like, hey, your buddy kissed me, then he went back in time to go be with my great aunt.
Yeah. I mean, that's how many people can say that?
And exactly. But I mean, it's the relationships here that I think that are going to be the foundation of the show as we go into this, because we've already had so many announcements of people that are going to be in the show. Wyatt Russell is going to be in the show. He's been in the trailer, and he's essentially playing the character of Jack Walker, who becomes Super Patriot, right? And there are a number of iterations of Super Patriot in the comics. Captain America, US Agent. Which version will he be? I don't know. Are they going to play around with things? I don't know. But I like the idea that you're throwing in this argument for America, right? You've got a Black American's experience. You've got a PTSD survivor's experience, ingratiating himself back into the country, who's been around for 100 years or however long he's been around. And then you've got this other version that is the more nefarious, the more, less like American exceptionalism type approach to foreign policy that we have had in this country for a number of decades. Will Super Patriot reflect that? The ethics and the morals only reach so far as to be beneficial to America, not to the world. And that's going to be so many interesting dynamics to throw into one show. That's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, the two villain, anti-hero, whatever you want to call them, characters that we know are going to be in the show are both, as John said, John Walker / US Agent and Flag Smasher. Which in the comics is Carl Morgenthau, but in the series you've seen her. It's Carly Morgenthau, I believe, is kind of part of the Flag Smashers. And so for super Cliff's Notes versions, Flag Smasher in the comics and Flag Smashers ostensibly as a group are people who are anti-nationalist, anti-fascist, believe in open borders, tearing down nations, let people be free. And U.S. Agent, to Johnny's point, is sort of the government-sanctioned Captain America, who is like, I believe in USA patriotism the way the government tells me to believe in it. And so when you look at those things and you combine them with the fact that the plot in the comics of Sam Wilson Captain America, which is a few years ago in the comics when Sam also became Captain America, was that Captain America gave him the shield, said, you are Captain America, and basically the government was like, no, we don't think you are Captain America. And a lot of people in the comics were like, we don't want a Black Captain America.
Yeah.
And so that was from the comics. So combining that, in that arc, Sam Wilson did fight with U.S. Agent. U.S. Agent showed up from via the government and said, hey, give us back the shield. It's ours. So when you take these things from the comics and you look at sort of the ideology of these characters, you start to really line up the fact that this is probably going to be one of the more political Marvel TV series that's really going to dive into, in the absence of Captain America, exactly what Johnny said, which is, what does it mean to be a hero? Yeah. What does it mean to be a patriot? What does it mean to be an American? I mean, I think that that really does seem to be the direction, given the characters that are there, given what they represent, how they are on the board. That does seem to be the direction that we're going in, and I think it's going to be really, like, I'm stoked. I mean, in one sense, it's like, is that a little bit too sensitive for us right now as a country, given what we're dealing with? And in another sense, it's like, bring that shit on.
Yeah. Shannon, so they could not have known that this January 6th riot at the Capitol was going to happen. I'm not trying to get political here, but you can't help but connect these stories to that situation and explore the idea of patriotism, what a person defines it as for themselves who is an American citizen. And so some people may watch this and actually be on Super Patriot side, and actually be on the Flag Smashers side. Some people may watch this and not be on Falcon's side. Some people watch this and be adamantly on Falcon's side. So this is going to be a very interesting experience on the MCU side of things. And I want to hear what you think, but also I think this is brilliant what the MCU is doing. They are pushing back against people who've been saying for years, oh, it's kind of a factory, as long as you keep it funny, blah, blah, blah. They're really exploring some shit with these shows. WandaVision certainly explored that, and now we're getting this on the military side of things, on the Patriot side of things, on the American citizen side of things, and I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, and I think leading up to Endgame, the smart money was that Steve is going to sacrifice himself, Tony is going to survive. Because in no way would Marvel want to kill off the guy that kicked this whole thing off. And then we saw, like, it was a brilliant arc that the writers did for both of them. That it got set up in the Avengers when Tony said, everything special about you came out of a bottle. And Steve said to Tony, you're not the guy to make the sacrifice play. And they both make that journey and do it. But a big question amongst the fan base was, who is going to get that shield? Yeah. And a lot of folks just sort of presumed that Bucky would get it because in the comics, Bucky was the first one to take on the mantle before Sam. And I don't know if this was with the writers or if this was with the Russo brothers, but they were talking about the decision for Steve to give this shield to Sam and how it was Sam is unblemished. Sam is the pure one. Like Bucky has a lot of things that he has to atone for. Even though he wasn't in control, he still did these things.
Yeah, he has the flashes his head. Yeah,
and then you hear the dialogue. It's in the promo where Sebastian Stan says that shield means a lot of things to a lot of people, and maybe that's kind of him knowing, like, I could never carry that shield. You can. I mean, it's so I'm. When the marketing first came out for Falcon and Winter Soldier, this was the show after the announcements. It's the one I was the most excited for because of all the Marvel movies, I like the Captain America movies the best. And those first trailers, I wasn't into it because it was just the action. Now I love action, but I've also seen a lot of action. Like, to get me excited based purely off the action, it has to be something mind blowing, and you're not going to show that at the beginning. The thing that's going to get people excited for the series is the character dynamics, watching these two guys interact with each other, knowing that, like, the thing that we have in common is gone. How do we relate? How do we go forward?
Yeah, a lot of us have been in those relationships with friends. We're friends because we're friends with their friends. But once that friend is removed, do you have the same kind of friendship? Not everyone can be Michael Vogel, so the rest of us have to navigate those kinds of situations.
I didn't say it, but I'm not going to deny it.
You know it's true. One more thing I want to throw in here is don't forget that Balrog the Leaper has been announced to be part of the show as well. Batroc. Jesus. Georgia St. Pierre is coming back. So, yes, there'll be some gritty stuff, but having him involved, I think, will add some humor as well, the Marvel-type humor as well. So that's going to be exciting to see what his role is going to be, because he had an awesome fight with Captain America in The Winter Soldier.
And also just with Zemo, I think what's really interesting is the way that Zemo has been characterized via Civil War is he's not some crazy supervillain. Like, he uses the emotional weaknesses of the characters. He uses the fact that he knows Cap will protect Bucky, and the knowledge that Bucky assassinated Tony's parents as the wedge to drive the Avengers apart. And as we've been talking about, in a world where you have all of these different ideologies, you have this absence of Captain America, you have Bucky on one side who has his demons from what he's done, and you have Sam on the other side who, Steve Rogers said, you're Captain America, but remember, this guy like broke the Sokovia Accords, like he's been on the run, so he's technically, even though he did just help save half the universe, still technically a fugitive. And so I think Zemo coming in and doing kind of the similar thing that he did in Civil War, which is kind of push people in different directions using the truth, using their weaknesses to push ideologies and push people against each other. It's like, you know, he fans the flames just like fake news does on social media. And I think watching him do that in the context of superheroes is something that I think we're going to see and that I'm excited to see.
Yeah, and one other thing on the Falcon side of things, Carl Lumbly has been announced to be a part of the series, and a lot of people are speculating that Carl Lumbly is going to be playing the original first Black Captain America, Isaiah Bradley.
Yep.
So will that be, who is one of the 300 U.S. soldiers that the U.S. Army experimented on to perfect the super soldier serum? Listen, we're doing our rewatch of the MCU. That super soldier serum comes up in The Incredible Hulk. With what happens to Tim Roth's character, the Abomination. So this thing has been around and been misused and been, you know, this has a history, the serum itself. So what role will Carl Lumbly play in this? And of course, we're seeing it nowadays. A lot of people in the Black community having issues with this vaccine coming out, not trusting it because of the actual history that America has with experimenting on Black people for vaccines or for viruses or what have you. So there's a lot of mistrust in the Black community over that. So I hope they lean into that as well and explore that some more to make it even more of a real series.
Yeah. I was gonna say the same. Yeah, I think the same thing. And it comes from the comic book Truth, Red, White, and Black by Robert Morales and drawn by Kyle Baker, where Isaiah Bradley first came from. And as Johnny said, it was this idea that long before they used the super soldier serum on a white soldier, they did a lot of experimentation on Black soldiers, and that there is a Captain America who is Black who predates Steve Rogers. And given everything that it seems that this series is getting into, I would be very surprised if they did not go down that road, if Carl Lumbly is not actually playing that role. So I think that's also something which, you know, people are going to be, I imagine, if Falcon and Soldier goes down the roads that we're all talking about, I think some people are going to be super into it. And you can just hear the people right now saying, why can't these superheroes just be entertainment? Why does it have to get political? But I, for one, welcome this as a way to sort of distill a lot of what's going on in our country and have like a good discussion about it. So I'm sure as we get into our weekly reviews, we will have a lot to talk about.
For sure. You mentioned Truth, Red, and White, Black. I do want to give a shout out to some other things. This is recommended by the great people over at Vanity Fair, Anthony Bresnikan, a number of the people, Joanna Robinson, hosting a podcast. They've also recommended these books if you want to do some reading to accompany this, because I had a text from a friend of mine today who knew I saw the first episode, and she had seen it, and she's like, wait, what's this mean? What's this mean? What's this mean? So if you want to do a little research for yourself, and if you have the time, Truth, Red, White, and Black, as Michael just mentioned, but also Captain America, Winter Soldier, which came out in 2006, the comic book, Winter Soldier, the complete collection, Winter Soldier, the Bitter March, Captain America, Sam Wilson, which came out in 2012, so very recent, Winter Soldier, Second Chances, and Falcon and Winter Soldier, which came out actually last year and is already continuing on into this year. So if you want to do some extra reading to give you some even more context of what you're watching, you can go down that path as well. So
of course, if you're not a reader and you just want to have that context, you can also tune in to our weekly reviews where we will cover all of it every week for you.
That's right. And please, and we should announce now we are going to be doing it. And our fourth is a name we just mentioned a few minutes ago, Mike Kalinowski, who is a hardcore Captain America fan. He is going to be joining us. No intel on the rumors that he will wear the Captain America outfit during the reviews, but certainly he will be there to have some fun discussions with us as well. Whether the beard goes all the way to nomad lengths, we'll see. But certainly it'll be fun to have Mike Kalinowski returning consistently back on the Geek Buddies to review Captain America. To review Falcon and Winter Soldier with us because he's such a big Captain America aficionado for sure. That's going to be fun.
We are presuming he's bringing the shield to the Justice League review, but maybe the uniform for the Falcon and Winter Soldier review.
Fair.
I'm down with that. But yeah, look for our announcements for that. We will be doing those pre-recorded, and then maybe we'll do a live review like we've done, live finale review like we did with Mandalorian and with WandaVision with Mike as well. So that'll be fun. So Kalinowski on board with the Geek Buddies for this run of the MCU series here. All right, anything else to touch on, or are we good?
I think we've covered it.
Okay, that's the road to Falcon and Winter Soldier.